love this story by Oliver Jeffers. It's kind of about, well, it really is about friendship. The Way Back Home by Oliver Jeffers. The Way Back Home. Once there was a boy, and one day as he was putting his things back in the cupboard, he found an airplane. He didn't remember leaving it in there, but he thought he'd take it out for a go right away. And there he is, getting himself ready with his flying glasses on, looking pretty piloty, if you ask me. The plane lifted off the ground and up into the sky, higher, higher, and higher, till you can barely see it. Suddenly, the plane spluttered. Put, put, put. It had run out of petrol, which is a British word for gas. Now the boy was stuck on the moon. What was he to do? There he is on the moon, looking like a crescent. He was all alone and afraid, and soon his torch began to go out. A torch is also a British word for flashlight. And there you can see him in the night sky. Up in space, someone else was in trouble too. His engine had broken down, and steering the ship toward a flicker of light, he landed on the moon with a bump. Seems like they have a similar problem. Both the boy and the Martian could hear noises in the dark, and both feared the worst. That means that they had imaginations, and they were imagining that there were monsters that were going to eat them. They both were scared of the same thing. But as their eyes got used to the dark, they both realized they'd met someone else in trouble. They weren't alone anymore. There's something special about being in hard times together. The boy showed the Martian his empty petrol tank, and the Martian showed the boy his broken engine. And there they are. You can see the drawing. And it looks like they're putting their heads together and they're making a plan, kind of like what you do when you're coming up with cool ideas. Together, they thought of ways to fix their machines and how to get them both back home. The boy jumped down to earth to get the things they would need, right down into the sea, and swam toward home. But by the time he got there, the boy was tired out, so he sat in his favorite chair just to catch his breath. And his favorite program was just starting, and he settled down to watch. And there he is with his little penguin friend. If anyone's read some of the Oliver Jeffers books, you might know him from that. But you can still see that poor little Martian, the little alien, is still out in space, and he's checking his watch. So he's a little bit impatient. He's wondering where his friend went. Suddenly, he remembered what he should be doing and rushed off to the cupboard to get what he needed. And he ran outside and shouted, but there was no reply. He couldn't be heard. So the boy climbed to higher ground, called again, and waited. There he is climbing a mountain to be heard. He was hoping he could just call up to his friend. This time, a rope was lowered. The boy began to climb, and the Martian began to pull, and soon the boy was back on the moon. The boy fixed up the Martian's engine with the right spanner, and the Martian filled the boy's petrol tank. And they said goodbye and thanked each other for their help, and they wondered if they'd ever meet again. After a long night, they were both finally off the moon. The boy went one way and the Martian went the other, both on their way back home. And there's a delivery person at the door of the little boy, and he opens it up, and what's inside? But a radio, and it says, "Hello, hello." And if you can predict, it's probably the Martian who's just sent away to communicate. So their friendship actually won't end. They get to keep talking to one another and maybe even have some adventures. It would be interesting to know what their next adventure would be. That would be a good idea for a story. Maybe you want to write it. Thank you for listening.